Dar?
Daria.
Okay, second?
Jonathan.
Got it.
Fantastic. It's 1, 2, 3, 2, 3.
Is everybody ready? For round 6 of the MTT. Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Should I stand here?
Wherever you are comfortable, dear.
Please.
Here?
And wherever he
Here.
he can take you.
Okay. Injustice anywhere is threat to injustice everywhere. Martin Luther King Jr. affirmed that injustice anywhere could be and it is a threat to justice everywhere in the world. We as the affirmative team, as the affirmative side, we agree with Mr. Martin Luther King Jr. as the injustice of human rights abuses and oppressions of freedom of speech is something that we need to prevent and we cannot accept. We as the affirmative side supporting the resolution that says that the right to anonymous posting on the internet should be protected by law. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a world where anonymous posting is not protected by law and consequently our human rights are not protected by law. Our first contention as the affirmative team is that anonymous posting protects anonymous posting protects and promotes the right to freedom of speech. Well, Oscar Wilde said that give a man a mask and he will show you his true face. Let me just tell you about Threatened Voices. Threatened Voices is an organization that tracks the suppression of online free speeches. It records this instance where bloggers and online writers have been threatened, arrested, killed, and disappeared by authorities since the year 2000. According to their database, there have been more than 367 recorded cases of online bloggers, writers, journalists, and even regular people who have been prosecuted for just expressing their opinions on the internet. And we, as the affirmative side, we are for protecting their right to express their opinions freely on the internet. There is no freedom of speech if you are consequently afraid of speaking your mind for fear of prosecution. Thus, if the human right of freedom of speech is to be promoted, we need to make a law to protect anonymous posting. Oppressed people and other discriminated groups such as gays cannot express freedom of speech without being able to protect their identity. So we need to have a law to protect that anonymity. We have to do that because the right to anonymity is a component of the right to speech. So if we are protecting the right to anonymity, we are basically saying we are protecting the freedom of speech. And let me just clarify something. When we talk about freedom of speech, we are giving the citizens the right to not express themselves, but actually not only express themselves, but actually have the choice to keep some things hidden. That is part of having the right to express oneself. Because freedom of speech is partially having the right not to express all and reveal all informations. So actually, freedom of speech is related to freedom of privacy. I just showed you the logical link between the freedom to anonymous posting that is linked to freedom of speech and consequently linked to freedom of privacy and then the right to have privacy. Our second contention is that if we make a law to protect anonymous posting, we are promoting discourse in progress. Without being afraid of repressions, controversial debate can improve understanding of each side and help lead to a middle ground. The scientific and astronomical community was set back when Galileo's ideas were suppressed and have been prosecuted. And he was prosecuted. The protection of the anonymity prevents suppression, and by preventing suppression, we are promoting and discussion, and therefore promoting ideas and evolution. If someone knows that if he expresses his thoughts, no matter how controversial they are, freely and without any kind of prosecution or whatsoever, which is protection by law in anonymity, that person will share his thoughts without any fear, and that will promote discourse and debate and progress and evolution of mankind. That will consequently lead to progress and debating, which will promote a better understanding about controversial issues and promote respect and harmony in a community, whether it's an international community or a national community. We are for global understanding, global evolution, global harmony. Our third contention is that by promoting the law that protects anonymity posting online, anonymity posts, we are setting a precedent to protect human rights. By setting a strong stand for the promotion of freedom of speech through anonymous posting being protected by law, we are setting a precedent for international respect for human rights. Let me just give you an analogy, a simple analogy. In the state of Arizona in the United States, the state of Arizona adopted a law that citizens cannot have the right to make their own guns and bullets without federal approval after the gun shooting that has killed many young people, in the school. After the Montana state set it a precedent to do so. So this is the logical explanation. This is the logical analogy. The Montana state set it a precedent to not have the citizens, to not allow citizens to make their own guns at home. So the Arizona state did is that they adopted the law and they made it work in their own state. So the precedent that has been set by the Montana state actually has been established in the Arizona state. So if we, this is a simple analogy. In our case, we are talking about the contention that our third contention, which is setting a precedent to promote human rights, and that's being done by making a law that protects anonymous posting. Let me just finish by a Sartre's quote. The Sartre, who is a philosopher, he said, "Freedom is what you do with what has been done to you." So if we give them the protection that they need, freedom will be promoted, and that's what we all are looking for in this world. Thank you so much.
I'll run it, tell you how much you need. One used.
Thank you.
2 used.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Thanks for your speech. My first question is, what is your model?
Our model is to set a protective law for anonymous posting to be protected by a law. And
And-
we are going to, it's an international law, if you want to more
Okay.
specific.
And you are going just, how you going just, okay, you're going to enforce these websites to provide the options, right?
We're not going to enforce anyone to do nothing that is not approved upon. So we're going to promote pre-existing anonymous posting through this international law. So we are going to make, we're going to have the choice to be anonymous and be protected to have anonymous posting online.
So it means that you force these
I
websites
did
to
not.
provide these options.
I just said that we are going to promote pre-existing anonymous posting and the
Okay.
websites that they want to have protective anonymous posting.
Thank you.
Protected.
Why should we force these websites to allow for choice between anonymity if there are some websites that allow it?
I am not against anonymity. I'm for being
I know
anonymity protected by the law.
So you didn't get my point.
Mm-hmm.
For now, in the status quo, there are some websites that provide you anonymity, right?
There are, yeah, of course, there are.
So why should we make it a law if we have it? If we don't,
So I
it's
believe
just-
that you do not even understand the motion, because the motion says that we have to have a law to
Thank you.
protect anonymous posting, not to have anonymous posting.
You're
The
saying that
protection
if we
of
don't
anonymous posting.
if I quote you right, you're saying that if we don't have anonymity, so it's just like we do not have the freedom of speech.
I'm saying that the protective law that we, as the affirmative, are voting for is going to promote human rights and the freedom of speech, as you say.
And is the freedom of speech is an absolute right?
What do you mean by absolute right?
I mean absolute.
Like, redefine the absolute right.
Okay, we can skip it.
Okay.
What were the bloggers of Threatening Voices blogging about?
They were blogging about controversial issues, as we are debating controversial issues today. So, are we not supposed to
And
talk
were
about
they
controversial
posting
issues
anonymously?
too? What?
And were they posting anonymously?
They were, and they were prosecuted because they were not protected.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we run some more? Wait, can we run some?
Got it. You've used 2. Three used.
Thank you.
Three used.
Thank you.
Or 4 used, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, who was not accept Galileo or his ideas? I think that it doesn't really make sense who posts something on the net, because people evaluate ideas, not the authors of these ideas. It will not support the progress and evolution and so on, because people are the same, and whether they post anonymously or not, they post the same things. Affirmative said that human rights are very have very big connection with anonymity, and freedom of speech and freedom of expression connect with anonymity, but no. Anonymity is option, and anonymity is not essential to survive. Anonymity isn't a right, and freedom of speech is only in freedom. What's the difference between freedom and right? Right is thing without which we cannot survive. Freedom is option. Freedom we have we may have freedom, or we may have not, and we have live without anonymity. They said that they are going to make an international law to promote anonymity. What does it actually mean? That all countries will have to agree with this law, and after this agreeing, all countries will have to force their websites to provide the option of anonymity. It's simply impossible, because how are you going to make all countries agree with this law? Not for all countries it's profit. By what are you going to enact this law? By United Nations? Who are in the United Nations? Maybe America will agree with this law, but Russia, but China, oppressive governments who does not see any profits in this law, who will not support this law, and it simply will not enact it. So our opponents try to make a world of illusion. They try to give a mask for every man, and they simply go away from real life, because real life and online life should not be very difficult, because people are the same in both of them. And it's game with fire. It's very dangerous, because maybe they will enact this law, but too much freedom is bad, and people will feel themselves free, and it actually promotes hate speech. It actually promotes illegal activity on the net. It's too much freedom for people, and people are very different. There are crimes among them, and you actually give them too much freedom. You actually provoke them to do crimes. And now I move on to our case. We have one contention against the motion. It's the problem with forcing companies to provide options and to have three subpoints of it. The first is rights of businesses, the second is content of users, and the third is alternative websites. The government has no rights to force private businesses to provide the option of anonymity. Just if I own a restaurant, my government has no right to force me to provide special gluten-free food for some people. Websites are private domain, so we have no rights to force them to do something, because it's their own area, it's their own thing, and we simply have no rights. For example, the New York Times website is privately owned, and the government has no rights to force them to allow anything posting. they retain the rights, and whether they don't want anonymous posting because they want people to take responsibility for what they say, or whether whether it's because they feel people will make more intelligent comments. Ultimately, it's their own decision. What about users? Our feminists have said that now people have no choice what information they will post. No, the user always have a choice. And the user always decide which information he or she will post. And if the user is not crazy, he will not or she will not post information which could be used against him or her. So the user always have to choose what issues to talk about. And when someone comments on the New York Times website, they know that the information may be posted and agree to these rules. When you go to a website, you agree with rules established on this area. And see alternative. Why we should force all websites to provide the anonymity if we have now sites which provide it. The internet is very huge, and there are people, websites owners who see profit in providing anonymity, and users can always go to the sites and post there anonymously and be happy. So, as a conclusion, our opponents go to a world of illusion. We ask you to stay in real life, because if you play with the fire, if you give too much freedom for people, it's always bad. And now the status quo is optimal. Maybe there are some not very good things, but too much freedom is much bad, because it provokes people to do criminals. We don't want it. Status quo is optimal, and for all these reasons above, I beg you for site negative.
Yep, already started. One minute used to post on.
The first speech is 6 minutes, right?
Right.
Okay, I'll start. About our model, maybe you said that it is impossible for us to agree by all countries, right?
Yes, it's possible.
Is this debate about whether the country, whether all countries will agree or not?
You in earlier cross-examination, your speaker said that you are going to make an international law. International means the common of the world.
Okay. About your negative side contention.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I will talk about affirmative side contention. How government can suppress the freedom of speech?
How government can suppress?
Yeah.
It can make some censorship maybe, but the government contains people, so we have elections, and if the government is not suitable for people, people will choose another government.
Okay. Maybe in your first contention, maybe you said that users and websites will only have forced choice. But why?
Users in websites, what?
Will have forced choice. Just
No. People or users have a right to choose what information to talk about.
so. What was a problem in your first contention?
There is no problem because you always decide by yourself what you will post, and if you don't want some information to be published about you, you simply don't do it.
Can you
So,
explain the harm of your contention one?
What's the harm?
Please explain your contention one.
About users?
About negative side, your side.
Okay. Now we shouldn't make the international law because it's impossible. First, and secondly, now in status quo, you have not anonymity in real life, and you should not have absolute anonymity in virtual.
I think that was refute your argument, your contention, your negative
About
contention.
private companies, about users, and
Yes.
about alternatives.
Uh,
So we cannot force private businesses. Users always can choose what to say, and if they want to say very much anonymously, they go to alternative websites who provides anonymity.
okay, thank you for this. Thank you for answering.
Can I start that time, please?
Well, that wasn't even enough to get the stopwatch to click.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. Just made 10 seconds.
Judges ready? Opponents ready? Man is least himself when he talks in his own person. Give him a mask and he will tell you a truth. This is a quote from Oscar Wilde, a homosexual poet, in a time where homosexuals were persecuted. Today we agree with this, that we should be able to protect anonymous posting to have people who are discriminated to have a right to speak. First, I'd like to clarify the definition because the negative side does not understand what we said. In the crossfire, the first speaker clearly repeated that it is pre-existing companies, not all companies. It's pre-existing companies such as forums that already have anonymous posting. We are not forcing ourselves on random businesses. It is only pre-existing companies or companies that want to do it in the future. This is only companies such as forums such as 4chan that already have anonymous posting as an option. Now I'd like to move on to my contentions and then refute our opponents. Our first contention was that anonymous posting protects and promotes the right to freedom of speech. This is the strongest point in today's debate because freedom of speech is one of the rights that is essential to us. But the thing is, you cannot express that right if you are scared to talk. In an oppressive regime, if you are persecuted for what you say, if you are homosexual and people will persecute you for who you are, then freedom of speech needs to be exercised with anonymous posting. You cannot truly say what you actually think if you are scared of being found and killed or persecuted. That is why we have to have anonymous posting to protect freedom of speech. It is merely an extension of what we need. Our second contention was that it promotes discourse and progress. Our example about Galileo was that he gave his example and his ideas out there, and he was persecuted for it. The church put him under house arrest until he died. This is what happens nowadays when people put their opinions out in the world, when they're trying to create a better change, when they're trying to create discourse. People persecute them, governments arrest them, such as we stated with Threatened Voices, the 376 people who were persecuted for saying their opinion, even if they're using anonymous posting. What we are trying to prove today is that we should protect anonymous posting by not allowing them to give the information to other third-party groups. This way we will not let information be leaked out, and the government will not be able to persecute people who are trying to make a better change for their future. Our third contention was that it sets a precedent to protect human rights. If they agree that oppressive governments are bad, then they agree that we should have this law. Furthermore, we state the example about Arizona and Montana, where they changed their laws based on a precedent that was set. We are setting a precedent to protect human rights. We are setting a precedent to protect freedom of speech. And oppressive governments will see this precedent and we will be able to promote it. They said that oppressive governments won't do anything. They won't be able to change. But we said international law. NATO has gone in the Libyan crisis. They have made changes to help human rights. This is what we want to do. We want to promote a better future for our children and for us. The negative side wants to stay with the status quo, where their oppressive governments are continually oppressing their people. We want to make a change. We want to set a precedent. We want to promote human rights. Now I'd like to go over their points. They stated that it's the ideas that people judge, not the people. Well, the thing is, with anonymous posting and status quo, people can find out information. Governments can force companies to give them information. So that's why anonymous posting doesn't work. If the people don't like the ideas, they can find the person and persecute them. And that is why we need to protect anonymous posting as a law. They also say that anonymity isn't essential to survive, but human freedom of speech is a human right, and I think that belongs to every human being. And even if it's not necessarily absolutely essential, it's a human right that belongs to all humans in the world. They also said that they have focused on how we will force websites to make anonymous posting an option, but again, they have missed the point of our definition. We have stated pre-existing companies. We are not forcing any online company to have anonymous posting, so their only contention about how we force businesses falls. Therefore, the negative case has no contentions, and the affirmative case still stands. But on the side note, they also say that oppressive governments won't agree with these laws, so they will not follow them. But again, in the negative case, we will stay with the status quo. We will stay with doing nothing as homosexuals are persecuted, as dissidents are killed. We need to make a change, and if setting a precedent is going to do that, we need to promote that. They also say that absolute laws in the crossfire, and I'd like to clarify that. We agree that not all laws are absolute. If there is a murderer, then the government has the chance to get the information for a trial, just like a warrant. Because the fact is, if there's a murder, that's different from posting your ideas. That's different from rapists are different from posting your ideas about controversial issues. So as you can see, their only contention about how we will force businesses and how governments will go in and force businesses falls because it doesn't even include the definition. Because our definition is pre-existing companies that already have anonymous posting. As you can see, as an affirmative side, we want to change the future. We want to change oppressive governments to stop persecuting their citizens, to allow freedom of speech and allow discourse and progress because people are protected by anonymous posting. People will reveal what they really think. People will reveal what they want to do in the future if we have anonymous posting. Therefore, as you can clearly see, the affirmative side still stands and the negative has no impact in today's debate. For these reasons, I strongly affirm. Thank you.
Got it.
Thank you for speech.
Thank you.
That's some questions. Do you think that oppressive countries like China and North Korea take care of international law?
Excuse me? Like they don't follow international law?
Yes, of course.
Yes, this is why we need to set a precedent, and we can even have international law go in and enforce
thank
it.
you. How will you make the oppressive countries to follow your law?
Through international pressure. As you can see with the company Apple in China.
Okay, thank you. So international pressure, does it mean international conflict?
Yes, but if conflict is what we need to have human rights, then I think we should have it.
Okay, by promoting human rights on the net, by promoting anonymity, you will make international conflict. Yes?
I'm pretty sure there's international conflict when World War II happened, but I think stopping Hitler was a good idea.
So you have, you want to make changes, but in fact you will make conflicts and wars. Yes?
If it's promoting human rights, we should do everything we can.
Okay, for promoting human rights, we should make a military
We never said something about war. We said international pressure. That's different.
international pressure may be very different. Thank you. And the next question. You said about oppressive regime. So, to improve the life in oppressive regime, how do you think? What should we do?
To my version, well, I want to promote anonymous posting so people can have discourse and progress. They can discuss with their peers what they want for their future. That's what government should be like. That's what the made of the people for the people.
Thank you. Why in Western countries there is no problems to talk about everything?
Why in Western democracies there's no problem?
No, yes.
Is that there's no problem because
No, in the Western countries you can freely critique the government.
Sure.
Sure. And in oppressive regimes you cannot.
No,
Is it
that's
right?
why we want to promote discussion.
Okay, yeah, I understand. But don't you see that it's a matter of politics, not of anonymity, to discuss something on the net?
Well, it's not only politics. If you look at hate speech
Okay.
and or controversial issues such as gay marriage, this does happen, and we want to change
Thank
it.
you. And to discuss freely something, we have to change the politics regime. Yes.
Could you repeat your question, please?
Because see please, in Western countries there is no problem to critique the government. It's no censorship, no political censorship. Yes. In Western countries, is it political censorship?
Well, some things are not. Yeah.
In general, no. And in oppressive governments there is censorship. Yes.
Sure.
And it's the matter of politics, not of anonymity. Yes.
It's a matter of
Of politics, yes, of policy.
which is why they censor. I'm sorry, I didn't really get your question.
Oh, thank you.
I think it's done.
Yeah, how much time, isn't it?
You have 3:30.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I love this, a great use of prep time. I mean, that wasn't even enough for me to start the watch. But hey.
Is everyone ready? Okay, sure. So in my speech, I'm going to be going over why, if we can prove to you on the negative side of the flow, on the affirmative side of the flow, we're going to be winning off of harms coming out of the affirmative case. That is going to be a reason for you to negate today's round. So you can go to the negative case doesn't speak to the affirmative case, so you can drop that from the flow. But if I can show you why we can win off of harms coming out of the affirmative world that we made in our last speech and that we will be making, if they're going to be more harms in the affirmative world, you're going to negate. So let's go to the affirmative case. I'm just going to be going down the affirmative case and extending and reiterating comments that were made in the last speech and making new arguments. So let's go to the first contention. Their first contention is about human rights and how they're not protected. But my partner said in her last speech that this is just going to be promoting hate speech. This is going to be promoting bullying, and this is going to lead to more rights violations coming out in the affirmative world. They are going to be clear violations, and rights aren't going to be protected. If anything, this is just going to harm people more because it's going to be encouraged. It's going to make them more scared of the government and more scared of the society, and there's going to be more societal judgment. So here are clear reasons why there are going to be negative harms coming out of the affirmative case. But further, we would say, then we said in our last speech, that anonymity isn't a right. Just because you have your freedom of speech and you have the right to free speech does not mean you have the right to be anonymous. Even if you do have this right to be anonymous, you can still be anonymous in the real world. You don't need the online world to be anonymous. And even if people are scared of using their real name online and they don't feel like their right to anonymity isn't protected online, they can use their right to anonymity offline. So they aren't going to be violated. Second, we would say so the right to freedom of speech isn't going to be violated. So you can go down to their second contention. Their second contention talks about promoting discourse. But the problem there is that promoting discourse isn't going to lead to the best social change. First, if these people are actually going to be oppressed in these oppressive governments, the best thing we can do is to not protect them in these if we were to protect them, that's a good thing. But a better thing that we could do is if we were to make them fight for themselves and make sure that they show that they're supporting of their cause, such as Martin Luther King, who they bring up in their first speech. They open with a quote from Martin Luther King, but Martin Luther King did not hide behind anonymity. He got up and stood up and fought for what he stood for, what was right. So if we look at Ai Weiwei in China, for example, he was a political dissident, and he stood up for himself, and he didn't hide behind his name. And because he stood up for himself, he sparked a change, and people followed him. Because he stood up for himself, he went to jail, and then he grew more followers. Here are clear reasons why, if you don't hide behind anonymity, you're going to be more likely to bring social change, which is a clear reason why you're going to be voting affirmative, negative, because we will be leading to more social change. But even if you're not going to be looking there, the problem is that they give these threatened voices analogy, but the problem there is there's no reason why these oppressive regimes will follow this international law. So if they can't prove that these oppressive regimes are going to be following this international law, then they're not actually going to be protecting anyone. If they're not, they say that they're going to be protecting these people in these oppressive regimes, but insofar as they can't actually prove to you why these oppressive regimes will follow this international law that they set, they're not going to be protecting anyone. They're just going to be harming the people because they're not going to actually stand up for themselves. They're not going to follow behind someone, and they're not going to revolt and lead to a social change. They're just going to quietly sit in their computers and anonymously post about it. We need them to get up and stand up for themselves and make sure that they are going to be promoting their own rights and going to be making a social change and revolting. That's the only way for these oppressive governments to have a check back against them. We can't just assume that anonymously posting will lead to change in the oppressive government. Now let's go to their third contention. Their third contention talks about setting a precedent to promote human rights, and they say that if a country does this, and there will be international pressure. But they give no reason why setting an international law will make these oppressive regimes look back and change their ways, right? If we see that if China sees that the US and other countries are following these international laws, there's no reason for them to change. Currently, the US and other countries are following international laws, but that doesn't mean that that North Korea will start following international laws. There's no reason why, if we set an international law, a country that hasn't been following international laws in the past will just start to follow it. So, insofar as they're not actually showing you why they're going to be following these laws, first I would say that they're not going to be protecting anyone, and they're not actually going to be setting this precedent. And because they're not going to be promoting they're not going to be protecting these people, you aren't going to be voting there. But even if you're not looking there, I would say that you can look to the fact that they said that third parties can't sell this information, but the problem is third parties can still sell this information because if they don't have these anonymity laws already, then they can still sell this information. They're just protecting websites that do have this law. But if there are so many websites that don't have these laws, so if a website doesn't have this law, then then those third parties can still sell that information of who uses their website. So insofar as they're not actually going to be protecting everyone, third parties can still sell information if they don't already have these anonymity laws. There's no reason why they're going to be protecting anyone in their world. For all these reasons, I urge a negative ballot.
You're actually going to use it this time? Okay, affirmative, use you 110. Minute use.
Thank you for your speech.
Sorry.
Can I start?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Okay. So, do you agree that there are activists in China that are jailed?
Sure.
Okay. And you said that if that person is jailed, a protest in the street will be actually promoted, right? When
Yes.
Okay. So how come that guy, a lot of people and activists are in China are jailed, and there is no protest in China to protect those people who are jailed?
I mean, there are these riots. Like
No. How come? Can you please explain the link, the logical link that you actually based your arguments upon?
Sorry, what's the question?
You just agreed that there are a lot of activists in the jail in China, and
Yeah.
you said that if that person is jailed, a lot of activists will go to the street and protest, right?
No, what I said was that they gain
Okay,
followers.
thank you. Okay, thank you.
I mean,
thank you.
okay.
Okay, thank you. I understand your point.
Okay.
So, you talked about how we talked that there is selling information.
Yeah, you brought up that point actually.
When actually we did not brought up that point, and I think that
Yes,
you actually
can I-
misunderstood
okay,
our
can I-
definition.
can I
because-
explain?
Okay, explain.
Okay,
But briefly.
so in Taylor's last speech, he said that third parties can sell information
Okay,
to
thank
countries.
you, thank you. He did
Oh,
not
I-
actually.
that's-
Okay, thank you. He did not. Okay, so
Okay,
you said
no
that
problem.
we are going to promote bullying in violation.
Yes, we
Okay,
actually said that in our first speech and you didn't
Have
respond
you
to it.
ever heard about Ask FM on Facebook? Ask FM.
Yes,
on
I
Facebook.
have. It's
Okay,
not
have
on
you ever
Facebook,
heard
but okay.
about Amanda Todd?
Yes, I have.
Okay, she committed suicide because she was bullied on the internet, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So if we protect these anonymous people's rights to
thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So you said that promoting.
If anything,
this,
that's a
okay,
point
thank
for us
you,
to
thank
a
you,
reason
okay,
why we have
okay.
to. We can't protect these rights.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just ask the question?
Ask away.
Okay. So you know that there is that has been a revolution in Egypt, right? In Libya, of course.
I don't know how these 2 points are
No,
related.
no. Just
but
answer the question, please.
yes,
So
I am aware
are you,
of this.
Okay. So are you aware that the NATO interfered in the revolution?
Yes.
Okay, so you're actually saying that the international community had a say into the revolution that happened in Libya and helped to overthrow.
No, I think those are very different points.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you said that the people are not the people who are behind the screens are not going to revolt and get up and stand.
Yes.
Okay, so how come that anonymous posting is actually helping revolution in the Arab Spring?
Okay. So that's a good point.
Just explain the logic.
Okay. So what we're saying is that if you look at China, for example, right?
No, just talk to me about the Arab
Okay.
Spring.
I need
Just
you.
the Arab Spring, because I'm talking about Arab Spring countries.
Okay, you're not only talking about Arab
No,
Spring
I am
countries.
talking about Arab Spring countries.
Okay, this resolution isn't only talking about Arab
I
Spring
know,
countries.
but this is my
even so-
example. Could you please answer?
Okay, so your example. Well, can you even? What's the question? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That was fun.
Okay, you've used 240.
We'll use the rest.
Okay. Well, that was entertaining. Yes. You've used 3. 4. Five.
Used.
Six used, 2 remain. One minute remaining. Seconds.
Okay, I start. Before crystallize this debate, I want to remove the misunderstanding in this debate. First, about forced choice in definition. Maybe opposition's negative side said user still can user just have forced choice, but our stance is not like that. Users still can have right to choice. Users still can choice whether which they can also they can choose to hide their name or not. They can disclose their name too. So this is not forced choice. Please confirm this point. For this point, negative size contention is not stand now. Please confirm this point. And what we want to say is user can hide user can hide that name, and that choice should be protected by law. What we want to say is that like that we should respect their choice. Please confirm this point. And about maybe there is argument about the information setting, but we also say that this setting should be banned by this law. Please confirm this point. We should not. We agree that this information should not sold. Please. Their attack is not stand. Please confirm this point. And about this debate should be settled. This debate should be settled. By protecting anonymity, whether protecting anonymity is government's duty or not. I prove that this is government's duty by 3 points. First, about right to anonymous is the point is that right to anonymous is existing now. Please confirm our first contention. Now, freedom of speech is suppressed now because they don't have right. They don't have right to put information anonymously. So we need to. So when government try to protect their freedom of speech, they need to protect they also need to protect the right to anonymous. Please confirm this point. So we need to protect this. We need to protect anonymous by law. And I add another argument. I confirm third our contention about setting the precedent to the benefit of setting precedent right. They don't attack this point, and this is government duty because government. Please confirm this point too. So when we think about human right, promoting human right is government's duty. So when we think about government duty, please confirm our first standard. And the second one is which side can protect suppressed people? Which side can protect suppressed people, such as like we put example. As we said, we should give choice to protect. We should give choice to hide your name. We should put an equal platform to express themselves because they are fear of expressing themselves. And they cannot express, but it's government's duty to put an equal platform that where they can express themselves. Please confirm this point. And please confirm that the reason why they are fear from expressing is that there is a possibility that they can their possibility to specifically target by someone. So putting their information anonymously is very important. Please confirm our second point too. And third point is that which side can promote discourse. There was not much attack on this point. And we should give choice, and as we said, we should give choice to hide their name. So as we said in second argument, second speech and first speech, we can put information, and we can say we can say real thing with anonymity. Please confirm our second argument too. So for these three reasons, please vote to us. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, 3:30 minutes. guess you didn't need it, huh?
Ladies and gentlemen, if at the end of this round there are net harms coming out of the affirmative model, you negate. The biggest issue in this round is that the affirmative isn't proving that their model is leading to any development. Their model is just leading to hate speech, it's leading to violence, and it is not promoting any change. So, under our model, we promote change by encouraging people to take strong stance, and people will stand up behind the leader. They are not standing behind anonymity. They stand behind the leader. And I'll just talk about this much more later also. Today in this debate, I have figured out 4 clash points. The first one, the human rights. Next, the oppressive countries. Third, will it progress society? And fourth, is it even feasible? Let's start with the first clash point. It's the human right. The affirmative side are just, they are saying that they are for promoting human rights. Their model is based on that they are just promoting human rights. But actually they do not promote human rights. What they promoted is violence. What they promoted is hate speech. And they are just encouraging hate speech. They encourage bullying. And I don't know why she brought the example of Amanda Todd, but this example is for the negative. How it is for the negative? The Amanda Todd, she was suicide as a result of the cyberbullying. And this shows that if we are just going to give people the anonymity, if they're going to have the right anonymity, we will have much more examples. We will have much more examples as the Amanda Todd. Lots of much more teenagers are going to suicide in the result of the cyberbullying, in the result, because as they're going to be anonymous, are going to be less accountable for what they are saying, and it's lead to bad consequences. So how it promotes human rights if it is abusing your right? If you are just everyone express hate speech toward you and it's abuse your right, it's not about you are not talking about promoting, you are talking about abusing human rights. The next point, under this also, they say that the websites will still sell information, and because their model only protests websites, the websites, you are saying that it's the pre-existing websites, so websites will still sell the information because their model only protect websites that currently allow anonymity. So it doesn't make any sense. The next point, that the anonymity freedom exists offline. So it means that we don't need it online. If we have it on offline, and it is much more necessary for the minorities that you are talking, it's necessary for it's enough for them to express themselves. You are talking a lot about the freedom of speech, but there are also, the anonymity is not the only way to talk about the freedom just to express yourself. So there are much more ways to express yourself others. The second clash point is the oppressive government and no net benefits for the affirmative. So you want to make it as international law. Let's just suppose you are trying to make it an international law. Who will be your agent who will make that international law? Let's suppose UN. So who is in the General Assembly of the UN? It is Russia and it is China. China is an oppressive government, and are you sure they want to make it, and they will agree to make it international law if they don't want anonymity in their country, if they are tracking down every person that posts anonymity, if they are not allowing their citizens to express? So it doesn't mean that if you want to promote this human rights in the oppressive government, but then you're saying international law, and does even the North Korea, for example, care what the international law says? No, it doesn't. So you are not achieving anything. The next point, will it progress society? It will definitely not progress society. Under your model, it will definitely not progress the society. You are saying that you are for promoting discourse and development, but it doesn't. In order to make social change, you must not be anonymous. For example, you brought the Martin Luther King. Does he was anonymous? No, he was not. The same example of the Ai Weiwei. If you want to have any social change, just stand still, have your position, and just speak for your own. Don't be behind the anonymity. So it doesn't make any sense. The next, is it even feasible? No, it is not feasible. And if, for example, if life in countries is bad, it's time to change the government, it's time to do something else, but it is not just to enact useless laws. So if another time I want to repeat that we as the negative, we just provide you all, we just showed you that there are just harms coming out of the affirmative case, so you negate. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for a very good debate. As you know, this is a closed round, so we will not be making comments or giving you a decision.